scooting.
Hey,
Okay,
we're
there
group
we
5.
go.
I'm Hannah Cogswell.
I'm Jessie Dishman. Ashley Radetsky.
Victoria Kelly.
Emma Cartwright.
Aaliyah Chavis.
Alright,
Okay.
so we'll start with the Barbie and other dolls I'd like to see.
What are some of the key concerns raised by this author?
That Barbies aren't all around, like they only demonstrate, I think, like one certain topic and like one way, like one person.
Yeah. Like on 481, she says, they instill in legions of little girls a preference for whiteness, for blonde hair, blue eyes, and delicate features, for an impossible uber figure, perched eternally and submissively in high heels.
That these dolls make you, like, eventually, at some point, it starts instilling in you this thing that I'm never gonna look like this, and no one's ever gonna like me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do think that the whole Barbie thing does set some very unrealistic, like, ideals for, like, children and, like, adults and stuff like that. I did feel like she was a little bit hard on Barbie.
Yeah, for sure. When she was pretty much called, where is it?
She is a
She was like talking about
Barbie
how
hater.
it was about crap. Where is it? About how, she basically compared Barbie to Hitler,
mm-hmm.
and like how it was the same as the Third Reich, and I was just like, that's a little extreme.
Yeah, I mean, she was a little hard on Barbie. And I don't think you can place all of the blame on Barbie.
No.
Because even the creation of Barbie is surrounded by, like, media and, you know, like, popular culture and everything to go with that. So, like, I think Barbie kind of, like, goes, like, you can't just focus on Barbie. Because Barbie's nothing without, like, all the culture that's around her. Like, our culture of, like, whiteness and everything like that.
And I think it's also important to remember she wrote this in 1998. So it's been a really long time.
Where did you find that?
At the,
bottom
I
of the
just
first
looked it up.
page.
Yeah, the bottom of the first page. And there have been a lot of improvements. Like, I mean, still most of the job Barbies are like veterinarian and teacher. Yeah.
And
But-
there's no, like, big Barbies. They're
Yeah,
all
there
still
are-
the same size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a couple, like, independent companies that are coming out with, like, I can't remember the name of it, but there's one now, and she's, like, supposedly, like, 5'6", or you know what I mean, like, in proportion. She's, like, a normal weight. She comes with, like, little stickers. You can put, like, scars and moles
Oh, I
and,
saw
like,
her.
freckles. Yeah.
What did they do? There was a girl that was, I think I saw it, like, as like a related thing. She was taking, like, Bratz dolls or something, and, like, giving them, like, I don't know, I feel like she called them, like, homely or something. She was like, I gave them, like, a homely makeover, like, a makeover
Yeah.
or something, and then you could, like, you know, like, normalify your doll thing.
And you could give them, like, stretch marks. And, yeah. And, like, all these, and you could give them cellulite. That's what it was. You could put, like, cellulite on their legs, so it looked,
my
like,
God.
more like you.
How old
A
are you?
lot. To even be
Right,
having
to be having
autism?
cellulite, to be, like, identifying with her, you know, it's like,
I did read this article that was talking about the fact that moms need to stop, like, hiding in their rooms to change clothes. If they need to change clothes in front of their kids to show their daughters that it's okay to look this way, to show their sons that the first naked body that they see shouldn't be, like, in porn where they're, like, perfect and airbrushed and all of that kind of stuff, that you need to see that the human body is not perfect. So,
I think I'd be traumatized. Like, I'd just be like,
to a certain age.
right, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if your kid grew up with that, like,
It would be normal.
yeah, like,
that's true.
like, you know, like, as, like, little kids, a little time, like, parents that have, like, 3 kids that are very close in age, like, you put them all in the tub together, like,
Yeah,
you're not gonna
definitely.
sit here and wash every kid in, like, a new, like, bath every time, like, I know, like, when I was little, I would take baths with my sister, because we were, like, 3 years apart,
Mhm.
she was, like, 6 and I was, like, 3, like, That's
Well,
no big deal.
A lot of parents will do that until the kids get to an age where they recognize their bodies are different.
Yeah.
When they start looking at each other like you're shaped funny,
Yeah.
then you need to stop.
The other thing that, I don't know, kind of rubbed me the wrong way that she brought up was on 480 at the bottom. She calls Barbie a doll meant for vapid girls in the suburbs. And, like, I get where she's coming from. Like, that's what Barbie mostly represents, is that, like, white, housewifey, perfect body. But I was just like, oh, I mean, I played with Barbies, and I did live in the suburbs.
But when she's speaking on this, though, she's saying more so that this is what they were thinking when they were like 6 or 7, and why they thought their dolls were more cool, more so than saying like, oh, Barbies are only meant for like, you know what I mean? She's just saying that was her way of rationalizing why her dolls were more
Better.
cool than it. Because, yeah, of course, if you're a child, you're gonna want to see a doll that's like more kind of, you want to play with a doll that's kind of like you
Looks
too.
like you,
Yeah, because we used to play with Barbies all the time, but all of our Barbies like white. We had the convertibles and stuff, but there were black baby dolls or whatever, but it's not like as popular as like the normal Barbies that everyone plays with.
I found that it was like very rare though to see like another color, or than just white for Barbies or like any dolls.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's either like really like pale white or it's like really,
Really
dark,
dark.
black. Like it's not. There's no in between like Latina, Asian
Yeah.
Barbie dolls.
Yeah.
Well, that also goes into like the princess culture. Like the Disney princesses, they're until to a certain point they were all white,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden they were like, okay, well everyone's upset because we don't have them, so let's throw in like
Princess
Mulan.
Tiana.
Right.
Yeah.
Pocahontas.
Tiana was a little like later. Like
She's
that's
right. That Princess and the Frog just came out like 2-3 years
Yeah.
ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, the only thing I will say in defense of Disney is that most of the stories, like, that the early princesses were based off, were from stories
Yeah,
of...
they do like culturally make sense.
Yeah. Like, that's...
like Belle is from France. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, like,
all
with
the
the
different
time
ones, like,
period
Well,
and
like, I think
the stories
they're-
that were actually written. Yeah.
Like, as far as how they actually depict their characters, though, like, I think there is something more to be said, like, about that.
Mm.
Like, you know, you have, like, I don't, sometimes when I look at, like, you know, like, the little kids things, it's got, like, six of the Disney princesses on it. And they have these waistlines that are just, like,
And realistic.
God, you
Oh,
could break in
yeah.
half. Where's
Even
the rest
Ariel.
of your body?
Yeah.
Right? Like, she's half fish. Like,
And it goes like.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. They just send out like kind of, it's like subliminal messages almost. Like I did a paper on, we had to like do a senior project paper or whatever when I was in high school. I don't know if you guys had to do that to graduate. And it's like you choose whatever interesting topic, and I did like stereotypes in children's cartoons. And it was basically just saying how most cartoons, you know, they have like these small waistlines and there's not really many lead female characters. But even in the Disney movies, I don't know if you guys noticed, but it's just like the mom is usually missing, or she's painted as like the
Yeah.
evil stepmom.
She
and
has
it's
like no head.
yeah, and all the princesses, they're all made to feel like, oh, they're looking for a prince, they need a prince, but the mom is always dead or out of the picture, so they rely on a father, if not a prince, and it just puts like a strong principle on like male superiority and how we need them, and how that makes life so much more easier when they come into our lives, and things like that, and it just kind of sends out messages to little girls like, oh, well, you know, this is what you're going to look like when you get older, and this is what you need a prince, and you need saving, and it's just not like a good message.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Like most of them, they don't have
Mhm.
moms.
Not
Except
even just
Mulan.
that, their storylines. The only like strong one throughout the whole thing that's kind of like leading her story is Mulan, and even she like submits to like a
She
female
became
role.
a male,
Like, she's
yeah.
chasing this like captain. Like it's not anything for girls to live up to, and I think that's a little bit more in depth like thinking than just Barbie.
Yeah.
I mean, Barbie has a lot of problems, but I think it's all in. Like, you can like make them like the Barbie that you were talking about. You can make them look a little bit more like you.
Mm-hmm.
Like with these princesses, you can't.
And, like, I especially feel like since 1998, they've had a lot of pressure on them to make them more and to show a wider diversity. I mean, I haven't shopped for a Barbie doll in a really long time,
Right.
so I'm not exactly sure how well they did. But, like, I'm hoping that they're not just labeled as, like, special and limited edition anymore, and that they're actually incorporated into the, like, Barbie story.
I really liked her examples of the Barbie though.
Yeah.
I feel like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Those are, I thought those
they're
were
funny
pretty
and like
funny.
accurate. Like, I don't know, if you're gonna have one Barbie, you need to have Barbies for all different
Mhm.
types. I feel like.
I did think it was funny though when she talks about body piercing Barbie, and she's like, you know, it'll come with a little piercing gun so she can pierce Barbie, and then she says, without actually having to puncture themselves. Like, I don't know if she's trying to like say like, you know, kids shouldn't be like piercing themselves, or if she's, it almost like comes off initially as like they shouldn't be like getting piercings or anything. I don't know. I couldn't really tell where she was. It almost seemed like what is the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't know, it's almost like an oxymoron to like put that in there. Like she'll get a piercing gun to pierce Barbie, but like don't pierce yourself.
Like, you can be a rebel
Mhm.
without being a rebel
Right.
yourself. Yeah.
I feel like if the girls saw these Barbies, that they'll be more comfortable with how society accepts them.
Mm-hmm.
How they
But
see
some of
themselves.
them, like the Harley Barbie, the body piercing Barbie, like you can't really see. Like most parents aren't going to buy that. They're going to buy the pretty like blonde Barbie that you're used to that doesn't have any piercings because most parents don't want their kids to get tattoos or piercings.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I don't see parents actually purchasing these Barbies.
Like, there's no way my mom would buy most of these.
No.
Like, she'd buy, like, the Barbie Dream Team. It's like, oh, look, girls can be smart. But she would definitely not buy our Barbies ourselves. Like, especially if they're little kids with, like,
No.
sex toys and contraceptive. Like, my mom would never
Oh, yeah.
No,
buy
I
that.
really don't think, no, because, I mean, come on, we didn't take, like, sex education class. I don't know about everybody, but we didn't take it till, like, the 5th grade.
Yeah.
And that's when you learn about
Sex.
periods. Yeah, that's, like, an appropriate age for that. I don't think, like, young little kids should be learning about this stuff. Like,
Right.
they don't need to know anything about sex right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think in New Jersey, ours was like 3rd or 4th grade, but
Really?
like it wasn't like in depth. It was specifically like
It was like the
we're going to
chicken.
talk about like menstruation.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
not going to get into the topic of sex at all. That's
Yeah.
we're going to talk about like your changing body. And then like by the time I got to North Carolina, like in 6th grade we had like sex ed, where like
You learn
we're
about
gonna talk about sex, but it's gonna be very PG. We're not gonna tell you really
Yeah.
hardly anything about it in this class. Like these are the mechanics. Done. Moving on. Back to gym.
Well, what's also really funny about sex education in schools is the fact that abstinence is the only thing that you're
Mhm.
taught. You're not really taught, like, you know, and like you watch the shows about TV shows, they're putting like condoms on bananas.
We
Did
never-
anybody do that? I'm pretty certain that doesn't
I
happen.
think
You don't learn how to
Condoms were
use
mentioned
them.
like once in my sex ed
Yeah.
class, and it was like a. I don't even know if she was supposed to. Like, I feel like it was probably an abstinence only like class, but she was like,
Yeah.
you know, if you're going to condoms, like, don't tell anybody I told you that.
Yeah.
They really don't. They don't inform you on a lot of things. You're still basically ignorant to things until, like, you learn it through general life. Because I remember when I was in middle school versus when I went to high school, like, there were still some things that I did not know about sex or just in general because they didn't teach it to you at all.
Yeah.
So it's just, like, it's very, like, hit and miss kind of thing.
And, like, they don't teach, like, I mean, my school didn't, but for women, they didn't teach that, like, you can, like, actually expect or, like, gain pleasure. Like, sex was not a thing of enjoyment. It was, you do this to make a baby. It was not like, oh, this is, like, a good way to, like, express love or, like, you know,
Yeah,
you...
no, I'm pretty sure it was just like, this is how you make a baby.
Yep, that's it. And, like, I remember in 8th grade, the birth control section of our textbooks were ripped out. Like,
What?
whole pages were missing. And we were like, where are these pages? And our teacher was like, don't worry about it. We're not talking about it. It's just a part we skip. So there was nothing in there about like birth control pills or Plan B or anything. It was totally ripped out.
Did you go to a private school?
Nope.
So should we move on?
Yeah.
Because we've kind of already covered everything with
So, alright. Choose one.
How is Facebook sticking to outdated binary paradigms? And what other ways do popular cultures and news create normative boxes, excluding people who do not fit into such categories?
Well, one thing that someone said in the article is the fact that you can actually list like your different religious affiliations, but you still only have to you only get to check the box, like female or male. So like there's not like a list, like it's not saying you can put what you think here. You just have to pick one. And then how it talks about the fact that it switches the pronoun. It's actually on the first page. I thought it was further in, but how it makes it to where if you add something to your interests, it says like he added this or she added this. It doesn't say like they. It actually made it changed to where it says he or she rather than they.
I mean, I definitely think that they should, since now we live in a culture and a society where there are so many options, and Facebook is still just limited to. I still think that they should add more options now because people are getting more exposed to what they think they are and who they think they are. So, like, if I was transgender, I would want to put transgender. Like, I don't want to have to hide and not be comfortable putting female or male. Like, I probably wouldn't get, if I was transgender, I probably wouldn't get a Facebook if they didn't have an option of transgender, because it wouldn't make me comfortable. Because I don't want to have to pick, because that's not who I am.
Right. And on the first page she says, which I didn't even think about this at all, users must rank sex and relationship status above political and religious views, and those above favorite books and movies due to their, page design. I didn't even think about the order in which it goes.
Though I think maybe some of this is different because, they have changed up a lot of, the Facebook layout, and I think you can move around the order of things, and because this is from 2009, so that's 6 years ago. I think the layout of Facebook has changed a lot, but I'm not sure if the gender and sexuality categories have changed.
It's still the same as far as the relationship. What she just talked about, that's still the same because I only get on Facebook once every few weeks. But when I click on people pages, that's the first thing I see is single, in a relationship, married.
Because I think it's still on the side. Those are the first things that are on there. You can reorder them. But in your info section,
with the way that it's switched, it's listed right under your name.
Yeah.
If you, the first thing I think is if you're in a relationship.
Yeah, that is the first thing. Or maybe your birthday, and then it's relationship, and then you have to click more info to see
to see
all the other stuff.
I'm interested in.
Yeah. Does it still only have 2 options?
I don't know. I've had my Facebook for a really long time.
Yeah, some years.
I'm gonna look it up.
I think I've had mine too. Middle school.
I used to think it was for old people.
It was for college kids.
Yeah,
and then you had to be
dribbled down
invited into it. And I remember I got invited for one of my friends who had been invited by a
college student. I remember that's how I got mine too.
And eventually it just opened and everybody can have
it. Yeah, it was my junior and senior year of high school. That's how old I am. But it was Marin just graduated and now she has a Facebook, and so she invited me, and then I invited all of my friends, and finally it started to spread. But yeah, you're right, it started off
because right when you first got it was nobody had it, and it was I never get on this thing, I'm still on MySpace.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Which is pretty much the same. It was male female relationship.
Oh yeah,
status.
definitely.
They still only have the 2.
Really? It had that about me section that are on MySpace. It was up higher on your page. It would. You know how the layout was with your picture up here, and then over here it would have your About Me where you can put whatever.
Anything.
But on this, your About Me is still at the
way
bottom.
at the bottom. Yeah,
you don't get to say anything about
yourself.
Yeah,
and I completely forgot about that section. I looked at it a month ago, and I was like, oh, these are really old things that I put in here from when I first opened it.
Definitely, I was. Yeah.
I'm surprised that they haven't changed and make it more options.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people would have complained and said something.
The thing about it is, yeah, there's a lot of different sexualities out there, but like a gay man still gets to put that he's a man who's like in a relationship with a man, like. But it's only like the transgender people, the people who don't fit into those categories, and I don't think that a large enough population of them is even on Facebook to
They probably
really
care less,
petition.
maybe.
And you can always opt out of it too.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to show that. You don't have to show your relationship status. So
I took mine off for
Yeah.
a while.
so even if you don't feel comfortable like choosing one or the other, you can just have none.
And also, maybe some people, if you are transgender, if they did have it, I don't know how many people would actually feel comfortable, like, putting it that they are. Because you know how, just like that one guy that we read about, I can't remember which chapter, but he was a woman, and then he was, like, a man, and he ended up getting married, but they were a lesbian couple at first.
yeah.
It's just like when he was talking about, like, having sex with the one guy that didn't comment on whatever body part he had, because I don't know. It's just like a lot of people, because, you know, you look like a certain gender, female or male. I'm
They
not
might
sure if
just
they would
pick
want
one.
people knowing, like, even, because it's still, like, so touchy subject for a lot of people to, like, accept that still. So I don't know if they would, like, advertise it.
And this is very relevant because, like, okay, I have an ex that's gay now. Like, well, he may have been gay when we were dating, but, like, this is, like, in high school and went to college, found himself or whatever. But, well, he doesn't like to consider himself gay. He doesn't know what he is. He knows he's just, like, I guess bisexual or curious or whatever. So he really struggles with Facebook because he doesn't know what to put on there, you know. And I mean, I don't think he's at the transgender point, but if he were to go to that, you know, everybody sees him as a male, but it's very relevant. I never really thought about it that much.
What I'm wondering is if you can even make a Facebook without picking male or female.
I don't think you
I
can.
I think
It's
you can
required.
because I looked up Facebook sign up and it was like your name, username,
I just
birthday,
wonder if
and
you entered
gender.
in your name and username and all that and just didn't check one, if it would make
Would
one.
make you
Some are, like, required fields. You know, they have, like,
I
that asterisk, you can't move forward until you choose. I think
just
that
don't
might
wanna
be
make
one
a
of
new
those
Facebook,
things.
just a test.
Well, it's like a lot, and she also talked about in the article too, just like all the other like exams and like surveys and stuff that you have to take for the government, and you still have to choose male or female. Like a lot of them, you can put prefer, like when you apply for a job, you can put like prefer not to answer,
Yeah.
but they still only give you those 3 options. You know, and I feel like that still makes people feel like they always have to choose. Or
Like, why do they even need to know that? That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like,
It's
why
irrelevant.
does it matter? If my qualifications are good, why does it matter that I'm a female? Like, that's
Or
just
what
a way for you to
race you
say,
are.
oh, we're hiring a female to add to our demographic. Like, no, I don't want to get the job just because I'm a female. I want to get the job because I'm the best one.
But then sometimes, like, that's the only way you can get it because they're only looking for we're looking for more females. You know what I'm saying? I struggle with that, like, on applications. Like, should I put that I'm a black African, like, you know, like a female, or should I just say no, like, just leave it up to my resume? But sometimes that helps out, which is sad.
Well,
Yeah.
For me, I usually have to pick it because I have a gender neutral name. So Jessie can be for boys or girls. So I have to put it because people just assume from my name most of the time that I'm a boy. So,
That's true.
like, teachers have always done that. Asking where, like, have you seen him? And I'm like, I'm a girl. So, yeah.
See, I think of a girl when I hear Jessie.
yeah, I do too.
I think
There's
of a
different
boy.
spellings. Like, the way that mine is spelled is Jesse, and it's
Oh,
the
yeah.
boy
See,
one.
that's
And the girl one is spelled with an I because my mom didn't like the spelling with the I, so she just did the other one. And she didn't like Jessica, she just liked Jessie.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah, if I saw E, I would assume a boy. But if I saw like a Y or an IE,
yeah.
I would probably assume a girl too. Yeah.
I actually had an assistant manager who was a big black guy, and his name was spelled with an I, and like IE. And I was just like, you have the girl spelling your name, and I have the boy spelling my name. We didn't just switch.
Right.
It was really funny.
should we move on to the other one? Sex in the City.
Oh, sure. I like that these were one after another. That made it really
Yeah.
easy. Yeah. Okay.
What is hegemonic feminism and how does it play out in the TV show Sex and the City?
From what I understood, hegemonic feminism, or yeah, I think, was that like Sex and the City pretty much said that, or like just depicted these people as white, heterosexual, middle class, and they're only they only related to oppressed victims of patriarchy. Like they never talked about, there was barely any, if any, like stereotypical really roles of any sort of minority, and they never addressed the problems of other like minority women. It was just the categories that they fit into.
I didn't really like how they picked apart Sex and the City. Like, I didn't see all this that they picked apart, like, when watching some of the episodes.
Yeah, I think that it was a good example. Like, the show was a good thing to show, like, women can be anything that they want to be and still, like, be with a guy if they choose to. Like, in a committed relationship, like, you know, how Charlotte was the like homemaker type person, but Samantha was the one that went out and slept with a whole bunch of people, and then Miranda was focused on her career. It was a good example of you can do whatever you want to do and be in a committed relationship or not.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree that they really only use stereotypical any sort of minority, or when she had that one lesbian experience, that too, and I feel like they definitely could have done more about that and done a better job. But again, this show was aired when did it, like 90s? Was it 90s?
This was copyrighted in 2006, so I mean, it was this.
When was the
article
show?
was,
1998 to 2004.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like even where they were talking about how Samantha dated the black guy, and he was like a typical, like, I guess typical, like, big mandingo black guy. That's their wording, not mine. And and they were like trying to confront her about being racist. She was like, I don't see color. Like, I just see like missions or whatever she said. And she just kind of played it off by saying that, but it just dismissed the whole thing, you know, just saying, I don't see color. Yes, you do. You do. And that's probably one reason why you were after him. But I feel like they dismissed, they just kind of confront it and then dismiss it really quickly without getting too controversial.
The thing that I did agree with that I didn't think about when I actually watched the show, like the friend that Charlotte has who she can't figure out if he's gay or straight, and if they're on a date or if they're just hanging out, I remember watching that thinking, you know, you really can't tell, like it is kind of back and forth. But the problems, like, with this isn't just, like, the fact that she had to categorize him. It's the fact that we all have to categorize. So it still addressed an issue that everyone has. You always try to fit people into boxes without even really understanding why. You want answers because of the way society has
We talked
shaped
about
you.
that a couple weeks ago, actually, about how we always categorize people and try and figure out what they are.
I was ignoring race, in this case, the absence of people's color, and claiming colorblindness, other forms of racism.
Because it's like willful ignorance, or it's like ignorance is bliss. Like, if I don't see it, like, I'm not gonna think about it.
It doesn't
Therefore,
exist.
yeah, and it just doesn't exist. Like, let's not think about it. But it does, and you just saying that it doesn't exist.
Doesn't change the fact that it exists.
Yeah, and it is making you. It's just like willful ignorance to me, and it makes the problem worse because then. Like, if you have that mentality, then you're going to teach your kids, like, oh, like, what are you going to teach your kids? Like, this person they look different from you, but they're the same. Like, that's what you should teach them, but you're just teaching them,
There is no color.
yeah, there is no color.
It's
But it
weird,
really
but there
is
is a
because they
color.
need to know that for life. I mean, that's what, they're going to learn that in school, so you need to teach them that first.
It's basically like you're teaching your children, like, oh, there is no color, we don't see it, but then let's say, like, she has a white child that dates a black man. She needs to be teaching them, like, oh, okay, well, you're dating outside of your race, that's perfectly fine, and you're white and he's black, and this is what you need to be prepared for in the real world because racism exists and people are going to
Exactly.
stereotype you, and you're going to go through things instead of, if you think that it doesn't exist, like, you're not going to be ready for things like that. Because
For the
I know
real world.
me in general, like, I've dated all colors of guys, but mostly when I've been with white guys, it's been like the most shit I've had to go through than when I'm just with like a black guy. And it's like, I'll get, if I put up like a Man Crush Monday on Instagram, you guys know how people do that or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'll always put up like, I don't know, cute white boys that I think are cute. And they're just like, oh, all you like is white boys or whatever. It's because you're white at heart, because you talk white or blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, you guys are trying to justify what I like because of this. And it's like, really, I can just like whatever I like. You know what I mean? It's just like people should know and understand it and not ignore it because you're not going to be equipped to deal with it in the real world because it does exist.
Yeah, like instead of embracing the differences that exist in our society,
Yeah.
all we're doing is saying, oh no, they don't exist.
Right.
It's all
Everyone
like
doesn't
that.
have completely different experiences
Mhm.
due to race or gender or what. It just doesn't exist. We're just all this perfect.
We live in a perfect society.
But we don't.
Not at all.
On the surface, the show appears to be about liberated women, but how is patriarchal thinking evident in the series? Well, first off, the fact that this entire show is about sex, so but it's like normal heterosexual sex.
Mhm.
Like they're all in relation, talking about how they're successful. Even though all of them are successful businesswomen, they're only successful if they have a guy.
They're only happy if they have a
Yeah.
You don't really see a typical day at Samantha's job. You just see the men that she has sex with.
Right.
That's it. So I think that speaks to it a lot.
I mean, I think it's fine to include, like the pursuit of like love and like a partner and stuff in like shows and movies. But I mean, I've never watched it, but it seems like that's pretty much all it focuses around.
Yeah.
I watched a couple to know that, yeah.
Well, it talks about their jobs, and the main one, Carrie, she writes this article about I guess her week or something, and she lists everything that her friends were doing, that they were all Charlotte was worried about her husband and how he didn't want to have sex with her, and it's just all about the sex that they either have or aren't having, or
Yeah.
it's not about their careers at all, except for when Charlotte gives up her career to be a homemaker.
Mhm.
That's about it.
I feel like though that's pretty common in I don't know. What kind of TV do you even classify this as? I feel like Friends is a lot the same.
Mhm.
And I don't think Friends gets the same amount of crap for that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's not all focused on relationships though. It's all normal interactions, day-to-day life, and
I don't know. I feel like maybe I just
they're
haven't,
going on dates and stuff. But
watched
this is
enough
all
Friends, but-
talking about the sex.
I don't know. It seems like Friends has a lot in it though. And I know I just watched all of How I Met Your Mother. And it is a lot about their relationships and every night Barney's trying to hook up with people, and
Yeah.
then Ted is perpetually trying to find this perfect woman, and just hooking up with like other people while Barney started hooking up with people. Like, I don't know. I didn't like you follow more like of like their regular lives if it's more focusing on the other like side main characters like Marshall and Lily are like they're a long time couple, so you don't like spend all this time like just watching them be a couple. They go out and do things, and then like Ted is a single man and he's like looking for women. Like I think that's a really common problem with like TV in general.
I think it
I
was.
agree, but at the same time, I've watched all of these shows and I've seen Sex and the City from start to finish, so I know that this show is basically all focused on the sex.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it's about. It's in the title, but like How I Met Your Mother, it's a storyline. They're going through daily life. Like it's like this. They actually have like a lunch that they go to where they talk about sex.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's about it.
Yeah. I feel like it's a problem how it was so focused on Carrie and like how big would it like settle down with her.
Like his
And-
wife for her.
Yeah, and she was just so like I saw the movie. I've seen a couple episodes, but mainly the movies, and they were just I feel like that's really common in society. Like when you're with your girlfriends and they know you've been dating this guy, like, oh girl, why hasn't he put a ring on it? And that just kind of displays it, but you don't. I feel like we base our happiness, especially in relationships. Well, we base our happiness upon relationships and upon like men,
yeah.
and I feel
Like,
like that really,
That's my whole point.
Yeah.
Like, they're very successful women.
yeah,
And the entire show isn't about them being successful.
Right.
It's about chasing. like,
chasing men
Yeah.
and shopping.
Yeah. Right. Because, like, I get a lot. So, my boyfriend I've been dating for, like, oh my god, not even 2 years, almost 2 years. But I'm at the age where all my friends are getting married and having babies. So, I keep getting all this flack about, like, oh, you guys aren't even engaged yet. Like, you're going to be so old when you get married and have kids. And I'm like, there's so many things I want to do with my life before all of that. But I get, like, I want to get my degree and I want to get my master's and figure out my life before I'm like, oh, yes, like, let's make one life. But I get so, and, you know, it's kind of like you're saying, like, people think that your happiness only should stem on whether or not you're in a relationship and whether or not you're pursuing the traditional roles of a woman.
And these shows, they're kind of feed into what people want to see, because if you think about it, when you're having a conversation with your friends, like,
this is all you
people,
talk about.
yeah, you're not talking about, like, oh, how was class today and blah, blah, blah. People want to get right to the juicy stuff and, like, the interesting love life. And I can honestly say, thinking about it, like, talking to my families or friends or things, I'm, like, the single friend out of everyone. And I'll be thinking it's normal, and people, they'll ask me about, like, my love life before they ask me about, like, how I'm doing in school, what classes am I taking, what I plan to do after I graduate. And they're like, yeah, so why don't you have a boyfriend yet, and blah, blah, blah. And I think it's completely normal. I'm like, dude, I wake up every day thinking, like, how can I get rich? How can I graduate sooner? I'm not worried about, like, when I'm going to get a boyfriend. But that's what the emphasis is on. And we put, like, a lot of emphasis on, like, sex and relationships in society over career goals and things like that as women.
I mean,
I
I
don't know
like
about
this
men.
shit, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting, but it's just what people like.
How are class biases and heteronormative viewpoints evident in this series?
Well, like you mentioned before, they're all like, or you, I forgot who did it, but like they're all middle class in New York. Like, this is not real life. Like, this is just one group of women, and then when they date like guys that, because they're all successful, like you said, when they date guys that are not as successful, they can't take them out or whatever. It's like a big storyline, you know. But that's
Yeah, there's actually an episode now that, like you said it, where Carrie's dating a guy who, like, comes with her to this big event because she's really successful and they're going somewhere fancy or whatever, and he winds up leaving her at the end of it because of the fact that he just can't handle her success. So, thought that tied into the fact that their success and their station in life affects all of this.
Negatively affects their relationships. You would think a guy would want you to have it all together and not be so dependent.
They want you to be messed
No,
up.
they want you to
happy.
be dependent.
They do want you to be dependent.
It's so
honestly.
bizarre.
Yes.
My boyfriend is still like that. Like, it really bothers him that I want to get my master's. I mean, it doesn't really bother him. But he's always like, well, then I have to get mine. And I'm like, why do you have to get yours? Well, then I can then I can provide for you, is what he always says. And I'm like, well, I can provide for you, or, like, if you don't have to, God, I keep flicking my pens. You don't have to be the main provider. You don't have to be on the same education level as me. But they always think that, like, women have to need the man.
They do, honestly. I was at work and, like, I backed up into something and, like, it was like an elevator, but this thing was sticking out and it kind of, like, poked me in the butt. And the guy had walked up by and he was like, whoa, you better watch out. That's your moneymaker. And I'm just like, really? Like, I'm not a stripper. It's not my moneymaker. It wasn't that serious. And I've had guys actually get mad that I wanted to buy my own dinner. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And it was just like, you're too independent. Why can't I just buy you dinner? And I'm like, because I can buy my own dinner. Like, I don't need you to. Like, I don't know. They just feel like you need to need them or there's a problem.
I also feel like that's how it was when, like, society, and I feel like it's still that way. The guy or the man is supposed to always be the provider for the woman. The woman cannot provide for the family.
Right.
It's the man's job. And so I feel like that's still evident today. I mean, it's going, like, I feel like it's not as, like, evident, but it's still, that's how, like, some of the guys are saying, like, well, I have to provide for you. You can't provide for me, because if you provide for me, then I don't look like I'm good enough.
Yeah.
I think it kind of like, because that's what we like socially tell men, like that's what they need to do. Like that comes across as like threatening to them. Like, well, if I'm not providing for you, then why do you need me? Like, you don't need me. You can leave whenever you want. Like that like lowers their like power over like the relationship and like their control over everything.
Well, guys like to, like, I had a boyfriend once who he unloaded the groceries, and I'm particular about how I organize things. Like, I'm a very organized person, so all the box stuff and all my cans have to be in a certain place. So I went behind him and I fixed everything, like, right, like, because he didn't put it in any particular order, and so I fixed it. He got upset because I changed it when it's obvious that I'm a particular type person. Like, I have my movies alphabetized and everything. Like, it's obvious that I'm an organized person. Like, why are you getting upset because I like things a certain way?
Yeah.
I feel like this whole show would not exist if they were like lower class women, because like just like the scenario that you said, him leaving her because of her success, like that's not what. Let's be real. Most of America is what, middle class or lower class. So that's not depicting real life, because if it was real life, they would just be happy to have each other and be in love, not all this like money factor, you know. So they don't. It just doesn't depict
One thing
reality.
that when we were talking about their like middle class, that kind of like made me think of when it talks about it in here how Miranda, she's a single mom for a little bit, and there is a point in that where her job starts to, like, they say that it's being affected by her being a single mom. So it's like threatening her middle classness, like that she's a lawyer and she can't like be a lawyer and a mom. Like, you have to pretend you're not a mom when you're here. Like, we can't have you leaving if something happens to your kid. Like, that speaks to the fact that if women are successful, they can't be motherly and successful.
Right.
Like, you can't take a long lunch to take care of something that happened with your family and come back.
Right.
Like, it's not acceptable
And
because you're weak.
And that's still in shows. Like, I don't know if any of you guys watch, like, Parenthood, but there was one character who was a successful lawyer, and she had 2 kids, and, like, they kept telling her, you have to choose between the law firm or your family. And even when she was at home, she didn't always come across as the most loving mom, even though she was or whatever, she never came across as like caring. She came across as work. So like it still exists, like even in shows today, not just Sex and the City.
Well,
Oh, we're done. Last discussion.
Yay!